Alright people, what's going on? Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another video for you guys today. Before we get started with today's video, please make sure to hit this video with a like. It's been helping the channel out a lot, so please make sure to continue to do so. Also, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to get more Dallas Cowboys content from me. 96% of you guys watching are not subscribed, so if you're one of those 96% and you forgot to subscribe, make sure to click subscribe. Finally, hit the notification bell to be notified when I go live or post new content. So with all that out of the way, I wanted to talk about Demarcus Lawrence. Now, if you don't know, I did a video talking about Zeke and whether the Cowboys made a mistake in paying Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I wanted to extend that discussion to Demarcus Lawrence, mainly because he's also been criticized by many people because of the money we gave him and the numbers he was putting up in their eyes, especially in 2019. They feel like he's not worth that price tag we gave him, and they want to move on from him already. So what I want to do is just take a look, just objectively, at his statistics and just see what other forms of information are looking at to determine whether or not if the Cowboys really did overpay Demarcus Lawrence. So let's get into it. Before we get into like the comparisons and stuff like that, we need to first look at Demarcus Lawrence's deal. Okay, now Demarcus Lawrence, he got the franchise tag in 2018, $17 million. Okay, straight up for 1 year. He played on that. And then the Cowboys tried to franchise tag him again, and they finally budged and gave him his money at 5 years, $105 million, with $65 million of it total, like, guaranteed. Now, that put him at an average salary of about $21 million. Now, when looking at the structure of the contract, the Cowboys got through year 1 of the contract. They're now in year 2, and they have another year afterwards until they get a potential out in 2022. So technically the Cowboys gave him a 3-year deal, but they have 2 option years if they really want to eject him if he's not up to par or what their standards are, or they find someone else that fits the role. But we're not there yet, so we're here now. So when looking at who we're going to compare him to, the number one thing is what is the statistical group we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be looking at the 2018 and 2019 seasons. Why? Because Demarcus Lawrence was getting paid top-level money for a defensive end at that time with that franchise tag. And then, not only that, we're going to be looking at 2019 because he got his deal and he got that top-level money as he was looking for. So, who exactly are we looking at in this specific type of cohort? Let's start off with Demarcus Lawrence. That's easy, okay? Next is Kawan Short, who is making $19.47 million on average as a cap hit for the Carolina Panthers. We got Frank Clark, who is playing for the Kansas City Chiefs and is getting a cap hit of $19.3 million. You then have Trey Flowers, who plays for the Detroit Lions, who's making $16.74 million for a cap hit. We're going to be looking at Melvin Ingram, who is making $16.625 as a cap hit for the Los Angeles Chargers, and Dee Ford for the San Francisco 49ers at $15.87 million as a cap hit. Now, obviously, they don't make that money, but that's just the cap hit that they're owing their teams, so they kind of make around that ballpark. I'm not going to go into the specifics of each of those contracts because that's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is just look at Demarcus Lawrence compared to those players. So, when we look at the statistics, we first start off with games played. Demarcus Lawrence played the most games out of any of the others in this group in that 2-year time frame with 32, ahead of guys like Frank Clark and Trey Flowers by 2 games, okay? We then move to solo tackles. Demarcus Lawrence leads that as well with 72, ahead of Melvin Ingram by 5. We then go to assisted tackles, or assists on tackles, I should say. And Demarcus Lawrence is second behind Trey Flowers by 6. We then look at QB hits. Demarcus Lawrence is third, and he's only behind by 2, with Trey Flowers and Frank Clark ahead of him, tied at 41. When we look at tackles for loss, Demarcus Lawrence has the most out of them with 25 ahead of Frank Clark by 3. The big number with sack numbers, because that's what people are looking at, Demarcus Lawrence is third in this list with 15.5 sacks behind Dee Ford with 19.5 and Frank Clark with 21 even. He's ahead of guys like Trey Flower, Melvin Ingram, and Kawan Short. And I should note here, Kawan Short owes the Carolina Panthers $19 million, or rather I should say the Panthers owe him $19 million, and he only got 3 sacks in that time period. Granted, he only played 16 games, but remember, your best ability is your availability. I cannot speak today. And so with that in mind, that's huge, okay? So he's the second highest paid defensive end, and Demarcus Lawrence is doing a hell of a lot better than he's done in the past however many years, well, the past 2 years. When it comes to forced fumbles, Demarcus Lawrence is at 4 behind Trey Flowers, Frank Clark, and D Ford, with them having 5, 6, and 9 respectively. When it comes to fumble recoveries, Demarcus Lawrence is tied with Melvin Ingram and Frank Clark with 3. In fact, they're the only ones with fumble recoveries. When it comes to interceptions, this is interesting. Demarcus Lawrence also has an interception, and the 2 ahead of him in Melvin Ingram and Frank Clark also have interceptions, but they have 1 more, and they're tied with 2. So when I look at this, Demarcus Lawrence, not only is he doing well when it comes to stopping the run and also the tackles for loss, he does pretty well when it comes to getting hits on the quarterback. He's pretty productive when it comes to sack numbers. Not as high as we would want him to be, but still pretty good at his position compared to the others. And also, he's gotten turnovers. He's created turnovers. That's number 1. Number 2, he's gotten turnovers, whether that be from fumbles and as well as an interception. Even though it's 1, and again, for a defensive end, that's pretty rare. That's still pretty good. Now, when I look at the playoff totals, Demarcus Lawrence played in 2 playoff games, and he didn't get a single sack, okay? And yeah, and that's where a lot of people had some complaints with him, and he also had 3 tackles for loss in the playoffs, and that's pretty much on par with the others in the cohort. Now, I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, I would love for him to do a hell of a lot more in the playoffs when it comes to sacks and everything, but when you only have 2 games, and considering how the games were going, you really wouldn't expect him to do that. Now, there was another statistic I also wanted to mention. I'm going to put this on the screen now. So, another interesting fact is, did you know that Demarcus Lawrence has been known to get a bunch of double teams? So, if we take a look at 2019, okay, these are the statistics, or this statistic that was done by Seth Wilder. It was on Twitter back in December of 2019. Now, to explain how it to be read, the x-axis is the double team rate as an edge rusher, and the y-axis is the pass rush win rate of an edge rusher, okay? Now, based off of this, Demarcus Lawrence saw more double teams by opposing offenses, and you could see Robert Quinn up there with his success. And you got to keep in mind, yes, Robert Quinn also had some double teams, but also keep in mind that Demarcus Lawrence had a hefty amount of double teams. He was top in the league for double teams, and yet he was still productive as a defensive end. Granted, those numbers didn't come in the sacks department, but that opened up the door for Robert Quinn and other defensive ends to come in. This also happened in 2018. If you remember, Randy Gregory had 8 sacks, and he was playing opposite of Demarcus Lawrence in some cases, and that led to him getting more sack numbers. So Demarcus Lawrence has more impact on this defense than people think. He takes away pressure from the other defensive ends, and that allows them to succeed. He's the reason he's not the full reason, but he's part of the reason why Robert Quinn got a big deal in the offseason. So I'm not trying to sit here and say that Demarcus Lawrence is perfect. There are times there I would wish that he would do better, there obviously. But when you look at these numbers and you look at what exactly we're looking at, Demarcus Lawrence is not as garbage as you think he is. He's a very productive defensive end. And yeah, would I love for him to get more sack numbers? Yeah, sure. That's his main priority as a pass rusher. But the fact of the matter is he's been able to do many of the other things that a defensive end should do. Stop the run, get tackles for loss, hit the quarterback when needed, and this, that, and the third. He's been able to do that, and when you compare it to the other people, like I mentioned, he's either in the middle of the pack or at the very top. So please, when you say Demarcus Lawrence isn't worth the money, please understand of what he's been doing as a substitute. Yeah, is his sack number... He got 5 sacks last year, okay? Would I love for him to get 10 plus sacks? Yeah, sure. But remember, he has a lot more than to just sack the quarterback. He's got to stop the run. He's got to do all this other stuff. Because I know people will be like, well, he should be getting sacks more. That's more important. Well, if you stop the run, you don't got to worry about your linebackers really struggling. So there's that. Now, I don't want to go on forever. So with that in mind, I'm just going to try and close out what I'm trying to get at here. Yes, I understand that we're allocating a ton of resources to Demarcus Lawrence to keep him on this team, but he's a still very productive member of this defense, okay? And yeah, would I love to see him get 10 plus sacks a season? Yeah, sure. But again, when you're paying him to be a productive member on your defensive line and he's up there with the others that got highly paid, guess what? You're going to end up seeing that he's better than what you think he is if you honestly think he's not worth that money, okay? For God's sake, remember what I said. The second highest paid defensive end in the league is Kawan Short. And remember, he only has 3 sacks and has played only 16 games, and he's owed nearly $20 million, okay? If that was Demarcus Lawrence, everyone would be crucifying him for the money he made. But here we are, and the numbers show that Demarcus Lawrence is more productive than you think he is. That, and also when you look at it, he's a very integral part of this defense. So, I think I've gone on for long enough. If you like what you see, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Comment down below what you feel about Demarcus Lawrence. Is he is he worth the money? Is he not? Explain why. You know, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down there. And finally, make sure to also check out the other videos I have and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more content like this in the future. And finally, that's it. So, peace out, guys. Bye-bye.